And it's really nice to see so many familiar faces and names, new people, new names. Sangha Live's a really beautiful home for me. Like George mentioned, Martin Aylward is my Dharma teacher. We co-teach together. And it's a beautiful crossover for me to offer Qigong, which I think a number of you I know do. And I typically will teach Qigong and then sneak in a little bit of Dharma teachings into that, or lay the foundation of it. But on a platform like this and with a Sangha gathered together like this tonight, I really want to weave them more together. The wisdom that I feel has really nourished my heart, particularly, as well as a practice that has been so formidable in nourishing and supporting my body. And you may hear a bit of a bifurcation there, but Ajahn Sucitto, who is a Theravadan Buddhist monk and a lover of Qigong, once wrote me in an email. He said, for some strange reason, meditation people tend to leave out the body, parentheses, exclamation mark, like, why? And Qigong practitioners tend to leave out the heart. And of course, that's a tend, not blanket statement. But there is a gap. And what I've found is that by introducing the overlap of these practices, there can be a real resource that helps free the heart and really attend to the nuances of the heart, which are there to really help us meet a lot of the consternation and agitation that arises in a very distressing world these days. And to meet the pushes and pulls of the heart through meditation has been really very profound. But without the practices of embodiment that Qigong has given me, a lot of the energies of the heart, they get lodged in the body and they often have an embodied grip. And what Qigong offers is the discharging of a lot of that accumulation of the heart energies that often are just running along, but sometimes unacknowledged and sometimes causing quite a lot of imbalances in our physical body that just lead to a harder time for the heart to do what it loves to do, which is feel steady, right? Respond skillfully. So I think in the interest of the time that we have, I'd like to start us with some practice that gives you a taste of how these two can really work together and be supportive. And then I will go in and unpack some more context that may hopefully encourage you to see what, from my experience, has been just such a beautiful coming together and interconnectedness of two practices. And then we'll leave some time for questions. So how does that sound? Okay, so I'm just going to move my camera down a little bit. And I would invite you to come either to sitting on a chair or at the edge of a chair, if that works for you, or you could come to standing. Whatever right now feels a bit more supportive to your level of energy. If it's evening and you feel like sitting, if it's morning, maybe a little bit more brightness, you might want to stand. Or it just could be checking in with yourself. And what feels more grounding, more available to some awareness and presence. And then resting the two hands, one over the other, onto your belly button, your navel center area. And just to say, if you are sitting, to sit so that the sit bones really find the support and the spine has this space for an openness and uprightness. And that openness and uprightness can really be of service, not only to the energy flow of the body, but to the breath. When we stand like this, also to stand in a way that you feel expands outwards as well as to the sides and forwards, so that there's not kind of a shifting of the weight back to the heels or of the pelvis forward. There's a fullness backwards to the sides and forwards. And the instructions when we begin any meditative awareness mindfully is to establish just a consciousness of the breath. When consciousness of breath is present, it's different than kind of a witnessing. It's different than attention. Consciousness is, in Qigong, something that lives through the whole body. Qi moves through the whole body. So is there a way in which, as you become more conscious of the breath, that you can invite the feeling of breath to start moving through areas that might not typically receive it? Maybe the lower abdomen, where your hands are resting. Maybe the back of the skull or the back of the neck. Just a sense of, some breath. Receptive there. And the invitation as well, as you become conscious of the breath, is to bookend it gently with a pause at the, a pause at the top of the inhalation and a pause at the bottom of the exhalation. In Chinese, this is called 暂停, a pause. It's often used in instructing movement, so that the end of the movement is bookended with a slight pause before the next movement begins. In the same way that here, the breath can be bookended with a slight pause, a lingering. The bottom of the exhalation, and a slight pause at the top of the inhalation. And then maintaining that invitation to pause, release the arms, and let the breath be natural with those pauses. Turn the palms out to the two sides. Naturally breathing in, pausing. Naturally breathing out, pausing. And then use the hands to start lifting outwards, gathering what tends to feel like a little too much information, thinking, data. things that kind of agitate and distress presence. Gather those and then use the palms as they float down towards the ground to slow the momentum down behind lots of thinking, data, information. Slow the momentum down behind that. Hands releasing downward. And then turn the palms out once more, still with your natural breath. So the breath doesn't have to match the movement, but gather just the presence of attention here. The willingness to attend to what's arising now and fill with that invitation. With the felt sense of what's arising in the body. And then gather what you feel, just this invitation to be present. Presence is sensing, attuning to what's arising right now in the felt experience. And seal this in. As the arms return back down, bring the hands back towards the starting position at the abdomen, dantian. And then come back to your breathing. Jorge or George did this wonderful spotlighting of me, but I lost my view of you. So I'd like to see you again. There we go. Okay. And then release your arms. And you've been standing for a little bit, and let the toes move a little bit, feet readjust if you're standing. If you're sitting, also take a moment to readjust the position of your seat. And we don't have a lot of time for a full Qigong practice. So what I'd like to do is give you a little taste of some practices that can be, I feel, quite creative and playful. And creativity and play are some of the most strategic things you can do for your nervous system and your autonomic nervous system to relearn, to learn new things and move out of some of the habitual tendencies of attention, mind, and grip of heart. So this first one you can do sitting, and it would just be a sitting wild horse that shakes. You can also do it standing. If you're a sitting wild horse that shakes, you just imagine you're a sitting horse shaking a little bit. And if you are a standing horse, keep the heels on the ground and just be gentle. Letting a little movement come through the body as the image slowly shapes of a horse without a saddle on. So imagine that. If you did have a saddle on your back, how would that feel? A little heavy, a little weighted, like some stress or burden to your body. But if you didn't have a saddle on, a lot freer, a lot lighter. And if you had reins or a bridle and bit around your mouth and the sides of your head, kind of around the neck, constricting and directing movement, that might be one feeling. It's a horse that's being ridden. But if you were without the reins, the bits, the bridle, how would the space around the jaw, the temples, the neck, how would that all be experienced as a wild horse? And then your long flowing mane, imagine having that. You're at home and you're not going to make people in your home too concerned. You might do the lips like a horse might do. I'm not going to subject you to my attempts at neighing. But if you feel like you are in for a horse neigh, go for it. Again, I'm not going to subject you to my attempts. But just sense, free. And then turn to one side. The less doing, like for example, rather than trying to shake the hands, what would it be like to feel and sense just the inner force nature shaking off a little stress and tension? Not deliberate, not preconceived. It's just very natural. Not over efforting or feeling like there's an expectation of what the shake should be like, but it's very natural for you. Go to the other side. Could be slower. Could be faster. You might even avert your gaze away from screens for a moment and, picture yourself in a forest or on a grassland. What would the horse just gently shaking, what would it feel like to do that? Back to center. And then shake upwards. You're on your rear legs. 2 hoofs up in the air. And then go down and shake a little down. Let the horse's mane, the head, go down towards the earth. And then come up back to center. Slowly move from the shaking to less and less shake until there's just almost an imperceptible inner movement. And observe, or sense rather, what's felt in the body. Good. Now, adjusting the feet. It's still the year of the dragon, and it's a wood dragon. Kamala Harris is a wood dragon, coincidentally. It's interesting. But the dragons are all in China about the opposite of Western dragons. They're not about threats and they're not a menace or evil treasure hoarding creatures. They are the sort of embodiment of goodwill, resourcefulness, resilience, compassion. They act out of a wish to benefit all beings through their strength, right? Their resourcefulness, their sensitivity. They have a snake-like body and scales that can really be sensitive. They swim through the oceans, walk on land, and fly through the air, the trifibious. So this is a form of dragons flying, and it can be a really interesting approach for human beings to look beyond our human relatives to fictional or legendary, mythical, or real non-human ancestors. And in this form, you can have your feet apart or together. It's up to you. But what you want to be careful of is not to tax your knees. So you don't want to be turning too much on the knees and a little bit more through your waist. It's quite a simple form that we're going to work with. You could do this practice sitting down really easily by keeping the hips quite steady, and it's actually a very good way to mobilize more from the waist and less from the hips. And the movements would be the same with the upper body, but just sitting. So this conjures the dragon's ability to have clear vision. And very often when there's agitation and distress in our lives, in our minds, we get muddled. And so we can look to the dragon as it starts to fly its wings out. It's going to turn, doesn't matter which direction. And your two hands are dragon claws. They fly to one direction. And they come back as you breathe in to center. They lower as you breathe out. Breathe in, rise with your wings, and breathe out. Fly to the other direction. Your hands in those dragon claws moving through wind currents. Inhaling center, exhaling down. As you continue, see if you can also get the power of the dragon. So your wings aren't just your arms, they come from your lower back. Your primordial wings lift from your lower back. And then almost like there's something invisible that you're moving with your arms and hands to one direction. And then inhaling back to center, exhaling, the arms of your wings descend. We're just going to continue like that, breathing in. You might even breathe out clouds. That's what dragons in China do. They don't breathe out fire, but they breathe out clouds. Clouds, a manifestation of water, which is soft strength. That quality of dragons to have clear vision that can help direct their benevolent, goodwill nature towards compassionate actions. They remain resourceful, resilient. Breathing in, breathing out. They're powerful, very benevolent, and compassionate, mythical dragon with your sensitive scales, powerful wings, all with the intention of, again, being in service of goodness. But the dragon is also able to do these acts of goodwill because they they have access to this inner strength, flexibility, adaptability. They represent change and transformation. You're doing it with the legs together. You can feel almost like the serpent-like design of the body. And that inner strength is coming from, again, an embodied sense of your arms from the low back, the strength of your arms to fly through the sky. Lovely. It's so nice to see a Sangha of dragons on Sangha Live. Breathing in, breathing out, the power to transform, the power to be adaptable, and have really, clear ways of moving through the world with that steadiness of a dragon heart that chooses skillful responses, that orientates and directs its heart towards compassion and goodwill. And you're going to finish up 1 or 2 more rounds. So you might look away from screen and really feel these last few rounds as your own inner dragon-like capacity. What's that like? Get playful. Does it feel to suddenly move like you might imagine a dragon to move? Take a moment and just let that form of being a dragon settle. Harvest or collect any qualities in your own body that feel like, oh, there's something of value, something nourishing, something enlivening that you can fill into the form of your dragon-like body. And then bring the hands back to the dantian, lower belly. Come back to the breathing for a moment of just the inhalation, the exhalation, and the moments of transition between. Can you rest for a moment in those pauses and linger? And then the last form we're going to do, so we've been a wild horse, we've been a flying dragon, and now we are going to be a spirit turtle emerging from the water, and then we're going to go into our shell. So a turtle or tortoise is an animal that has a wonderful big protective shell on its back, and it walks through life with that protection from negative forces, which can be a real asset in practice, in mindfulness, recognizing, what is, and discerning what is difficult and just a negative impact that I can maybe not work with and not keep feeding, and what is a beneficial bit of information that I actually feel brightened and spacious by working with. Right? So the turtle shell gives us that shell of protection where we can protect ourselves from negative forces. And conceptually, this can be fun, right? In mindfulness, like, okay, that's not really a helpful story. That's not really a pattern that's really serving me. But then it's another thing to feel this, like, oh, I've got this back on this protective shell, and I can really find like a shielding from the flood of information and data coming in from the 24-hour news cycle, for example. Right? Just something that, oh, I'm going to conjure my spirit turtle. So this is how it goes. We can start with stage 1, which is sometimes a little bit easier to work with. And you can do stage 1 sitting as well. Show you stage 1 sitting. You round your back, your arms come up. And then it's like this is a piece of wood, and your spirit turtle lifts up out of the water and emerges. And if you're standing, I'm going underwater, and then I'm going to come up out of the water. Breathing in, I'm going to go underwater, and you don't have to bend the knees much at all. Just feel that shape of a good shell on your back. And then exhale, you're going to come up, emerging out from the water. Spirit turtle. Breathing in, breathing out. That's stage 1. Now you can stick with stage 1 if that feels good for you. You can also go in stage 2 where one foot is forward and one foot is back. And if you've got knee injury, you got to be really careful not to bend the knee in, but keep the knee out. And you go back and a big shell on your back. And then exhaling up. Big shell in the back. Exhaling, rising. So this builds a lot of strength in the back, the legs. You feel that protection and strength and endurance. You could switch legs if you're having one foot forward, one foot back, so you don't get too tired on one side. Right. And you're circling underwater, arms go forward. And then you're coming up, peeking out. What's above the water? Right. Can you feel turtle-like? The arms are circling forwards. And then you watch my arms, they come in and down as I emerge, right? Whether one foot is forward or back. So my arms are doing the circle, forward, in, down. And as a result, my back gets nice and round, my front hollows out. And I've got that cute little turtle head poking up. Turtles associated with longevity, endurance, patience, walking through life protected from those negative forces. Yeah, good. And then finish up. I'm going to finish with the spirit turtle enters its shell. Prehistoric tortoises, turtles, I saw this on Wikipedia, 15 feet tall, 2.5 meters, right? Or more than that. What's my math? Really tall. So imagine your hands circle around your shell. However large you imagine that shell to be. Your prehistoric sized turtle or contemporary modern turtle, tortoise shell. This is a opportunity to really feel into your own capacity for some safety, some good space. And that's often what the heart really needs to summon the courage and the energy and the effort to redirect from distressing signals to goodwill, a little space and protection. When either sitting or standing, once your arms come down, your shell circumference feels really a little more clear. The knees bend. If you're sitting, you can just tip forward, and then your turtle arms go in. They lift up as you fold gently forward. You don't have to go as far as you want to go. And your palms stay open, hands relaxed. The arms lift upwards or forwards as the head and the chest float downwards. Spirit turtle enters its shell. And gradually begin to re-emerge by lifting the head and chest, lowering the arms, rising back towards standing. And collecting, gathering, and harvesting. What wisdom can the turtle offer you? What felt sense can be honored? As you stand or maybe transition to sitting, staying with this felt sense of the turtle or tortoise, the little taste of what that offers you, what awareness and consciousness can be noticed and sensed in the body. But also more generally, having moved through being a dragon, a wild horse as well, and now being human. What shared resources, what shared learnings can these animals impart to your felt sense? Meditation as we sit or stand for a few minutes together. To linger in the moments of transition between in-breath and out-breath. Sitting or standing, same qualities of attention can arise, be met. In the remaining minute or so, just noticing where your receptivity, sensitivity of the skin is, dragon-like scale skin. Where there might be pockets of spaciousness like the wild horse who can shake freely. The steadiness and well-protected spirit turtle that patiently moves through its life. Shielded and yet sensitive, strong. And lastly, what quality is present for you of play? What is it like to be a dragon in your body? A horse, a turtle? What does that shift in the way that you connect to body and heart? So I really love the practice of Qigong. I love it so much that time flies. And I'd like to leave some time for questions today, but I also want to speak just a little bit to tie some threads together from the practice and what stands out that I feel would hopefully be of help to you in an interest that you might have in the way body and heart are interconnected and support each other to find harmony and ease. There's so many things that happen in life that cause this tightening and agitation and constriction. And somebody asked me on social media if I would speak about the US election tonight. And I thought about it and I said, it's not my area of expertise. But what I think I can offer is, what are the ways that, say, something like the US election creates and generates distress? But it could also be anything. It could be miscommunication in a relationship. It could be forgetting to respond to somebody that was waiting for you to respond. Like whatever source of consternation and agitation arises for you, what are the ways that heart and body can take a step back? And look after one's peace of mind? How can we still feel into the opportunity to ungrasp? These days there are lots and lots of sources of distress that can really tighten our hearts, which is all the more reason to recognize when we are experiencing distress and the heart is following that. And what can we do to encourage the heart not to follow this, but instead redirect it, point it towards the skillful responses of goodwill, resilience, steadfastness, compassion. And again, conceptually, this can feel like that is so important to do, right? It's the heart of the Buddha's teachings. And spoiler alert, the results of doing this are gladdening, are calming, are brightening, create ease, harmony, spaciousness, and release. The results also are possible. But the results only arise if we address the mental as well as the physical energies of the body. We can't only try to tackle agitation and mental consternation by thinking about it. It doesn't go very far. Like Ajahn Suchito is saying, there's this gap sometimes in the meditation world and the Qigong world. One is looking more after the body, the other was looking a little more after the heart, but at the risk of maybe overlooking or not paying enough attention to one or the other. And every distress of the heart has an embodied grip. And every bit of data and information that is coming in through our sensory perception, most of that now is visual. Most of that is auditory. Or we're reading it or watching it. And this data is really flooding our attention. And all the heart is always trying to do is keep things going, maintain some sort of steadiness and calm. But when it's flooded like that, it starts to respond to all the agitation and data, and it gets constricted or tight or fearful, or it starts to get angry. Okay. And then we probably can relate to the equivalents in the body. Anger, like the hardening of ill will. The whirlpool of doubt and worry, or that restless agitation of anxiety. It always has this embodied component. The freeze of fear, or the collapse of just overload, fatigue. If we are able to address and feel into the body and what is this embodied grip, what is the texture of it, what is the sense of it, it's not that alone is enough. But when we recognize, oh, there's that hardening of anger, blame, how could they, then if we get that far, then we might be able to label it or recognize it, name it. Oh, hardening of ill will, hardening of anger. Oh, I'm feeling hard. What does hardness need? It needs softening. It needs just like releasing. Right? And it's at that moment that we have this window of opportunity where the heart isn't dealing with the flood of data and the distress of the body, but it has a little release from the body, and that's a moment that the heart can can have insight. That's the moment that we can shift from, okay, we're no longer in the embodied grip, and then there's room for the energy and the effort of the heart to investigate. What caused me to feel this way? Is everything happening in these turn of events actually something I can control? Or is the source of this distress something I can control? Or maybe if I could just recognize that it's okay, I can write that person back, or it's okay, I can feel a little space. Right? Then the opportunity for some mental clarity arises. But if the agitation of the body is still affecting and layering in stress to the heart's just not got that space to foster and cultivate some insight and wisdom. I was teaching on a similar theme in person a few weeks ago, and emphasizing the importance of the felt sense, the embodied sense, and saying Qigong is a really helpful tool for that because it does give us a roadmap into feeling. It does give us an opportunity to sense more of what's happening in our bodily experiences. But the person was like, so did the Buddha really emphasize the body like this? And yes, the answer is. And people are often surprised by that. Within some of the texts, the foundational practice, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the first foundation is the body. And in the discourse on mindful breathing, there's 16 parts to it, 4 tetrads. The first tetrad really is about body, the bodily formations, kaya sankhara. But people recognize this, they work with this, and it's like, okay, I'm breathing, I'm aware. But what's often been misunderstood or mistranslated is that it's not awareness or knowing the breath. When we think about, I know my breathing, and sometimes that's the translation, it becomes a real data-orientated process. I am doing the breathing. I know my breath. But the word in Pali in the mindfulness of breathing is called patisamvedi, which means sensitivity. Attuned to the breath. Sensitive to the movement of energy, of awareness, of attention. That's so different than knowing it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it's a very important shift. Where I think Qigong really helps with this is we can be a dragon with sensitive scale-like skin. We can actually re-inhabit a more fully kind of sensorily aware experience that's not just our visual field. Because we're so dominant visually that we often just overlook or undervalue all the other sensory experiences that are also there. Touch, skin, energy. So I think there's a real beautiful possibility, to help the heart give the heart that capacity for the effort required to recognize negative forces coming at us, right? This is also mindfulness, the attention, too much social media or too much constant news alerts, getting on my phone, looking at the news again. Do I really need to read it? I just read it 5 minutes ago. Okay? And that takes energy and effort. Okay? And the body can really be supportive to the tendencies of restless, wanting to know, clinging to more information, the body, when it recognizes that and that releases, the heart really does get a moment of respite and much more capacity to point towards that, which is beneficial, which is brightening, which is helpful, which is liberating, which is peaceful, which is harmonious and more easeful. Yeah. Qigong is also something that helps our nervous system I don't want to say recalibrate. It helps our nervous system learn to be doing something different than it normally does. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, which we could say is very much feeding into our heart, it's a recording device. Something happens, the nervous system says, oh, this is what I did, and it records it. And you repeat that enough, and it gets very affirmed. And there's a lot of rich knowledge and resource that, if you're interested in, you can look at the workings of the autonomic nervous system, peripheral nervous system in our learning. But the main thing that I'd like to get across in this Sunday Sangha session is that creativity and play are the best ways for the nervous system to learn. Best ways. It's not just breathing, because breathing is a very ingrained sense in our nervous system. It's harder to shift. But creativity and play instantaneously give the nervous system a new way of being. It's unexpected. Okay? It's out of its conventional ways of operating. And therefore so helpful to the heart. And then therefore so beneficial in those moments where we can stop the flood of data, take a step back, find a little ease, feel a bit more aligned and in harmony with our experience rather than in conflict with it. So, we sometimes just forget we are dynamic and responsive, and playful. We get very serious, meditation, very, very serious. It is. I don't want to knock it. It's beautiful. It's quietening. It's deepening. And mindfulness as a practice is essentially, once Martin Aylward said this, I was like, he is so right. It's a creative response to a situation. It's not doing the same program again. It's a creative response to a situation. But I hope that what I can impart is just the importance of the support that the body gives to the heart. And then when the heart feels more steady, it in turn gives back a sense of ease to the body. When the heart registers flood of information coming and it is been given opportunity, more regularly to recognize, not going to follow that distress, but instead direct towards goodwill and compassion, then all of these kind of difficult stresses and tensions and angers and sadnesses and blames and shames, they just don't lodge into the body as easily. They just sort of are experiences that come and go. But the value of folding in the embodied sensitivity, the play, alongside the quiet moments of sitting where you can attend to, oh, that's what my heart is wanting to do. Now that I have some resources for my body, could I summon right effort and energy to direct it in a different way? Playfully. Maybe if you feel as a human being you can't do that, get your dragon involved. get your dragon in there and say, all right, I'm going to have my dragon, that resourceful, resilient, compassionate ally. I'm going to feel my dragon-like quality. They probably are our ancestors in some way. Call on that ancestral strength and help us. Look to your non-human ancestors. I'm going to teach about this in the course in a few weeks. In fact, listening to our ancestors, kind of expand us beyond just what we might conventionally think of as mom and dad, though they are definitely our ancestors too. All right. And I think, just as a closing kind of consideration, Martin also said this once, and if you have teachers, you probably can relate to this. Just at different times, things they say flow back in. And I just remember at the end of a beautiful retreat that I sat with Martin, his closing advice to us was, have fun and save the world. If you only have fun, you're probably not going to be contributing that much good to the world. If you're only trying to save the world, you're going to take yourself way too seriously, and people also probably get annoyed. But if you can combine these two, right? Have fun and save the world. Call on your resources and re-experience life through a shakeup of the nervous system. The results of these practices can bring ease. They're possible. They can bring a brightening to our whole experience, and very importantly, to the experiences of others and to all beings. So, thank you for your attention and your practice. And if you would like to ask questions or if there are comments, we've got a little time now.
Question, and thank you so much. I learned a lot. The Nicole Sangha. I learned a lot in just this little bit of time. It's my first time doing Qigong, and I thank you from the depth of my heart. And I've been navigating, this with my work and this situation with Save the World and burn out. And I totally see this idea. And I also encounter people that just want to have fun. So would you please repeat the first part of just having fun? I am understanding for myself, but I also would like to, uh, could you please repeat this idea? I think a little bit more of that. Thank you so much.
Have fun and save the world. I think
Yeah.
the have fun is to be like we were in the Qigong practice. It doesn't mean you're a class clown and you're goofing around and you're not taking things seriously. It's just shifting out of your conventional ways of being and playing, right? Having a little moment being a crane or a monkey, doing things in Qigong, you work with a lot of the aspects of the animal world and the natural world, and it takes us out of this kind of very human dimension of things need to be this way. We widen the lens, and we widen the possibilities out, and we reconnect with the quirkiness of the natural world and the animals in it and other things. But I think that gives an aspect of a reset to the nervous system, which is, again, really important for the heart and really important for how we then navigate the flood of information and distress that seems to be coming in more and more. And if you can marry that with save the world, you have fun, do things that just get yourself a little more creative thinking, a little more embodied, play, lightheartedness. then the saving the world is just not riddled with that weight of burnout. Yeah. How does that sit?
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I
You're
will
welcome.
just stop for other people to have questions. Not many, but I will stop on that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat box. And I just want to, before people have to get going, and just to say I'm reading them and acknowledging them. And it's really touching to read them. Yeah. Other questions, comments?
There's one question in the chat, Mimi.
Okay.
So Celine asks, is there a specific way to position hand on stomach, or does it not matter?
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Some traditions will say, in lineages of Qigong will say, left side is the yang side because that's where the heart is. Right side is yin, and that's where the yin organ is. And therefore, if you associate male, female with yin or yang, you might place one hand over the other. And as many people who might say you have to place your left hand over the right for a woman, there's equally the same number of masters and great teachers who will say the exact opposite. And ultimately, the teachings of the Tao and in every ancient Taoist text, there are no pronouns. There is no gender. The ultimate union is just union. So just place your hands however you'd like. Yeah. And William, I saw, has a question. Oh, you're muted though, William.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So much of the Qigong I've done with you and other people, it has been deliberately like inhaling, exhaling, and this and that. And you introduced a new concept, which was, well, for me, was natural breathing. Kind of went with the image of the tree inverted in the lungs, which I found. The question is kind of, I mean, I guess it's just my own particular nervous system. It has this built-in thing. When I try to just be natural, there's always this wanting to know what's inhale and what's exhale. Is there anything to say about that?
It can be useful at the beginning of a practice to have guidance and use the inhale with a certain aspect of movement and the exhale with a certain aspect. A lot of the forms, common forms in Qigong, 8 brocades, 18 forms, muscle tendon changing classics, they do describe breathing patterns with the different aspects of movement. And other forms of Qigong, and if you move into expressions of Qigong that include martial arts and internal martial arts, or primordial Qigong, which is often, well, it's founded and created by someone who's a Tai Chi practitioner and master. Natural breath is what is advised. And some movements are faster or slower, but the most important thing is just to keep the steadiness of the movement and the steadiness of breathing going. I think if it really is like something that your nervous system responds to and finds beneficial, to stick with breathe in now, breathe out now, stay with that. Like what I would suggest is like just lingering a little bit at the ends of the out breath, the tops of the in breath, and that can really be beneficial to the meditative awareness, the soothing of the body and the nervous system and the heart. It gives a moment of just that abiding and quite a lot of imbalanced energy can be discharged through that full exhale. But like most things, there are just different opinions, and you'll hear the same topic covered and explained in myriad ways. So trust what you feel is good for you is my final sort of input. You're welcome. Thank you for the question. And we have a little more time. Let's see. There's another question. Do you want to bring on, Axel
Also, yeah, Sholopilsin.
Pisin. Thank you for the pronunciation.
It's named after this little creature I put on the screen.
Oh, nice. It's very cute.
Very adorable. The endangered species.
Oh, it's dangerous. Okay. It's cute.
Endangered.
And
No,
dangerous.
endangered.
Oh, endangered.
Yeah, it's only 15 inches.
Mm.
Oh, not very long. But it's like a little dragon.
It is like a little dragon.
Yeah. I loved your imagery today, and it's funny. I wanted to mention I ended up with myself being like all three animals at the end, like the dragon, the turtle body, and the horse legs. So I kind of
Nice.
drew a little picture of it, so I remember what it looked like. And then my Chinese animals, like I'm a water rat, so I have a little rat on my shoulder. But my question has to do more with is it also resourceful to imagine like at times when you meet someone that makes you feel uncomfortable, or, your body gets a little bit tense, is it okay to imagine them as animals so I could release the tension
Yeah.
that my body feels at that time, or should I bring the focus more into my body again?
My personal recommendation would be just focus on your own experience. You can't necessarily know what the other person's response would be. Even if you don't say that you see them as an animal, they might have an unconscious kind of, but what you can really attend to is your own experience. So I would focus on yours.
Okay, so just imagine myself as a little
Conjure,
animal.
yeah, or conjure, if it's someone who brings a little discomfort, compassion of the dragon, right? But also the protection and the spaciousness, the protection of the turtle and the spaciousness of the horse.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Emma?
My voice is a bit croaky, so I don't know if I've written out my question as well. But I just asked, I'll read what I wrote. I sometimes really struggle to differentiate listening to the mind and to the heart and knowing which is coming from the heart and vice versa. So I've been dealing with a lot of doubt in my relationship, but it's been really hard to try. My senses heady. It's all very heady, and I'm actually just quite disconnected from the heart. But I just wonder, so how do I mean, it's a big question, but how does one really know, what it is that's coming from the heart versus coming from the mind? It's a big, I know, and I know it's a practice, but I've really been struggling with it, knowing what to trust.
Yeah, there's for a long time in my understandings of the Buddha's teachings, I was a bit confused because chitta is heart-mind sometimes, and it can include all experience and consciousness and awareness at a deeper level. What I personally found very helpful, though, was to understand that there's something called manas, which is what I pointed to a little bit of data. It's information, right? And that's very different than the heart's knowing and consciousness and awareness. The data is giving the heart what it needs to feel. It's the heart is like the felt sense. So, for example, if you're walking through a forest, right, data will say, it's sometimes a bit comparative, like, oh, gosh, this is a beautiful forest. Why don't I ever walk here? Or like it might say, oh, look at all these different trees. Like, manas is just data that's trying to categorize information in the world. And then there's some sensory perception, sanya, that start to inform the heart. And the heart is what feels. I'm in the forest. Oh, I feel really peaceful. Oh, being here makes me feel spacious. Being here, I feel grounded. There's not the data. So manas is really troubling sometimes if we're identifying again and again and again with the conceptual mind. It's conceptualizing. But meanwhile, all this conceptualizing, if it's not distilled or there's no discernment around it, and that's where mindfulness is really helpful, right? Mindfulness is to say, oh, that's all this data, but I'm going to shift away from the data to other sensory experiences like my breath or like my body or like the touch of skin. Like I'm going to feel into my body. I'm going to redirect that attention to body, let go of the data, and that's really good for the heart. But it's really important to recognize, like, data in a relationship, he said this and I said this and I'm always doing that's gonna, if left unattended, it reinforces the sense of I and me and myself and what I'm experiencing. And ultimately, the practices can really point us to who is this self that's getting distressed. We can soften the grip around that conceptualizing self before it continually informs the heart, before the heart continually follows it, and then all of that gets embedded into our nervous system, and we get a stronger sense of me doing this and me not doing this. Does that help?
They kind of become, as you were saying, like stuck together. And then it's like, what is heart? What is mind? And it's hard to then reconnect back to the heart. It sometimes feels like, it's hard to really seal into the heart because it's this fixated, cemented block.
So one really helpful thing, and then we're going to have to wrap that up, but the heart's, whatever the heart is feeling, it tends to be quite simple and straightforward. So pressure, right? Or hurt, or constriction, or spaciousness, or ease, or calm. Whereas mind is and the story. Too many words, right? And when we get too many words, we leave hearts. But if we can just simplify it to the felt sense, that gets you closer to heart.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you all again for your good inquiries and sharing and your practice and your openness to being animals. And just exploring together. I really appreciate it. And also thank you to Sangha Live for the invitation to share. And George, thank you for all of the background support. And thank you all as well for any dana that you are able to contribute. It's really, really important for me to work with this model. It steps out of the capitalist model, and it really is just reciprocity. I'll do what I can to support, share helpful things, and if in any way you're able to offer support in return, I deeply appreciate it as to Sangha Live. So thank you.